Gary and Scott spent the better part of 3 hours stalking a lone bull. The entire team was wearing whitewater clothing made with the Advantage camo pattern. What started as a simple stalk turned into an intense encounter. It was on this occasion that they found themselves so close to the bull that they could hear the flies buzzing around the animal and hear the rumbling of his stomach as he fed on the grasses in the area. In the final seconds, just when they thought they might get a shot, the bull scented them and ran. Scott would later relate the fear he felt as he watched the bull through the camera with the lens at full telephoto. He was afraid to move even a finger to focus the lens, thinking that any motion would tell the bull that he was a human intruder. At that point, the bull only knew that something was near. He didn't know what it was. He only knew that it didn't belong there. The seconds seemed like minutes, and the minutes like hours as they stared each other down. Expecting a charge, Gary nocked an arrow, and Naughty fingered the extra cartridges in his left hand. Suddenly, with a snort, the bull was gone, and they were left looking at bare ground. The next day they were back, now more determined than ever. After an unsuccessful stalk, they headed down another dry riverbed. Scott, riding shotgun, thought he saw a stick fly up in front of the cruiser as they drove along. It turned out to be a black mamba, which the vehicle had spooked just as the snake was about to attack a small bird in the bush next to the trail. The snake literally leaped from the sand clear into the bush just as the bird took flight. This was no fluke, Johan assured the group. The black mamba is deadly and determined when seeking prey, and will think nothing of going after a bird or any small prey for that matter. Scott was not relieved, and seemed to keep his feet and legs completely inside the doorless cruiser from that day on. Following a day of several unrewarding stalks, they came across a herd of buffalo with a great bull in their midst. It was unnecessary to stalk. He was just there, in front of them.
But then, you know, there's always luck involved in hunting, and we were just at the right place at the right time. I got a great shot at about 18 yards.
It's up to you, Gary.
The buffalo, he didn't know what happened. He went 28 meters and was stone dead.
The group was speechless and watched in awe as the other herd members tried to gore and move the downed bull, unaware of the arrow that had just pierced both lungs and killed him in seconds.
And it was actually great because it was another herd bull that was bumping this guy around because he smelled the blood, and when they smell the blood, it provokes him a little bit, you know, and they couldn't understand why this guy was down.
This buffalo, unbelievably, things just worked out. He presented an opportunity within a relatively short time. The hit was perfect. The other animals around him didn't even know what happened, and I'm not sure he knew, because he only made a couple of quick jumps or steps, and he started walking away through the brush. And the next thing, he went down and expired just very quickly. And you say to yourself, that's it. That's the way it's all supposed to come together.
The kill was quick, and the rest of the herd did not experience the trauma of a rifle shot. Johan, who had never witnessed a bow kill before, was impressed with Gary's shot and the speed of the kill.
Perfect shot, partner. Did it. Number 2 for us. Number 2.
Yeah, I mean, the bow was really effective. The buffalo didn't know what happened. he ran for maybe 10 yards, not really ran, but just, you know, trotted off and then just started walking. And after 28 yards, you could just hear him go down. It was really incredible to see that. And the rest of the herd just wasn't even disturbed. You know, they just stood around and we waited another 40 minutes for them to leave before we went up to the buffalo.
Gary took the bull with a Hoyt Alphatech bow set at 80 pounds. The 29-inch Easton ACC 371 aluminum carbon arrow had 5-inch feathers and was tipped with a 2-blade Zwickey broadhead.
It's the perfect classic case of what you hope for. You tune your equipment, you practice and practice and practice, you believe in it, you believe in yourself, in the method of hunting, and you know that it'll do the job.
One has to understand existence in a predatory life to fully appreciate how these animals live. They can be both the hunter and the hunted. The animals of Africa live with the fear that they are prey to many species, including man, and must maintain a keen sense of alertness at all times, or they will be the next meal for some predator. They are constantly on the alert for intruders. Even the Cape buffalo fears the lion, and many have fallen to the king of the jungle. Back in camp, the staff butchered the animal and prepared the meat for freezing. The hide was salted, and the head was prepared for shipping back to Gary's taxidermist in Michigan.
I wanted to hunt buffalo again, no different than the guy who goes whitetail hunting every year, year after year, or goes elk hunting year after year. Just because you got one doesn't mean you don't want another one. So there's something that draws you that says, I love that species.
The next morning, they took off once again at first light, looking for an old Cape buffalo, a real dug-a-boy they had seen the previous day. It didn't take long to find him on a hillside overlooking one of the many dry, sandy washes that cross the Mathaga Ranch. The bull was preparing to cross the dry wash. They had interrupted his plan. Gary immediately readied his bow, while Noddy loaded both chambers of his .470 caliber Nitro Express. At the time, they couldn't have imagined how useful it would become a few hours later. After waiting less than 5 minutes, the bull made his first move, slowly inching his way down the slope towards the dry wash. He turned and suddenly presented a perfect side shot to the lung area just behind the right shoulder.
It was about 20 yards, 20 meters away. The shot looked perfect. The placement was perfect.
Immediately, Gary released the ACC 371 arrow at less than 20 yards from the bull.
Buffalo took off, stopped after about 15 yards, 20 yards. He was covered in brush, so we couldn't really get another shot. We were waiting, looking at his reaction, and he moved off again.
The minutes crept by, but Gary was unable to get a clear lane for a second shot. Suddenly, the bull took off uphill toward the safety of thicker cover. An hour later, Noddy, Gary, Janoa, and Scott began tracking through the brush, only this time after a wounded bull.
The shot looked absolutely perfectly, just perfect, but something was wrong. This buffalo just didn't respond the way it should have, that a perfectly wounded buffalo should have responded.
Janoa soon found the spoor or blood trail and began the uphill search. There was not a lot of blood, which worried Noddy, for he felt that perhaps the shot had not hit both lungs.
After an hour, we started following his tracks, and by the way his tracks was moving, I realized that this buffalo probably might still be alive. He wasn't heading in one direction, he was making his way on his old track, so that shows you that he was still with his senses. We used a dog to follow up the track, as is, like I said before, these animals are really dangerous when they're wounded. Just for early warning and maybe trying to get another shot with the bow and arrow.
Foxy was released and within minutes had found the bull lying down in heavy cover. At the first sound of his barking, the group took off running, now joined by Johan with his .458 bolt-action Winchester. The bull had had enough of Foxy and was on the run again before they could reach his hiding place.
If we go in now, Gary, we have to kill him with the rifle because it's dangerous.
I know.
So if we get the car, we might get another arrow.
Okay, I understand. At least he's not taking
That's all
off.
right. The dog.
No, I understand, man.
It's a dog, that's why he's not running off.
He may keep him at bay.
Yeah, that's what he's doing now.
Naughty decided that he and Foxy should track the bull through the heavy brush, while Johan drove Gary to a crossing road several hundred yards up the hill. They arrived there and waited. Suddenly, Foxy came into view. He sped past into the brush across the road with his nose to the ground, but soon returned to sit in the shade near the vehicle.
He just found where the buffalo crossed this road. I'll leave him for a couple hours and come back with the tracking team.
We'd waited an hour, and then Naughty had moved in with the dog to see if, and he went a couple hundred yards, approximately, and the dog jumped the buffalo. The buffalo was laying down, so that shows that his adrenaline wasn't up, and possibly he's hurting and that, but the minute the dog was on him, they went round and round in this little brush spot for a minute or two, and then the buffalo was taken off and proceeded to come in this direction.
It's better we go a little bit now because when the sun gets higher, the tracking is going to be very difficult.
I trust your judgment, Naughty. You do what you think you need to do.
We follow him until we think we get into terrain that we know we can follow him in.
Okay? I understand.
Naughty wanted to continue, feeling that the bull could still be nearby, lying beneath a thorn bush near death.
See, more blood.
Had Gary been a rifle hunter, Naughty would have fired a second shot the moment the bull started to leave the initial area. Since it was a bow hunt, the animal must die by the arrow, unaided by a rifle, if it is to count as a bow kill. And Naughty wanted to give Gary every chance he could. They took off into thicker brush. After slowly covering about 200 yards, Foxy started barking and running in circles. He had found the bull. Suddenly, they saw the bull lying not more than 15 yards in front of them beneath very heavy cover. His head swayed as Foxy continued to harass and distract him.
Stay right here. Stay right here. Yes.
That's a good sign, isn't it? I just want to get up.
Noddy sent Johan and Gary to the left to find a clear shooting lane for Gary to place his second arrow.
Behind that tree there. Behind that tree there. Yep, I got it.
He was down, but not dead. A classic Cape buffalo trick. In a moment, he was up and charging out of the bush toward Noddy, trees and branches cracking as he lowered his head and headed straight for the opening. In an instant, Noddy leveled the .470 and fired the right barrel at the bull, now no more than 12 yards from him and still coming. The 510 grain bullet struck the bull in the shoulder, turning him to his right and toward Gary. Noddy ran to the left in front of Gary and Johan, hoping to get a second shot at the bull, but it wasn't needed. Johan fired his single shot into the bull not more than 10 yards away, and the bull fell over, dead at last. The pressure was intense. Listen closely, and you can hear Noddy's heart beating almost 180 beats per minute in the wireless microphone he was wearing. As the last air escaped from his punctured lungs, the death bellow sounded the end. It was a strange sound. The animal was already dead, yet he managed one final defiant gesture. It was a sound unlike anything else in the world. That was about as close as it gets.
Vänta på henne.
The team's emotions did not allow anyone to speak for a while. Later, Gary and Noddy would try to put their feelings into words.
The buffalo brought us straight, as typically they do, into straight brush, heavy brush.
As thick as he could get.
Thick as he could find, and he came. We were lucky enough to have the dog with us, and we found the buffalo, bedded down and hurting. There's just no doubt, hurting. One of the PHs was trying to get me into a position. I was actually almost in the midst of pulling the bow back, and the dog was circling the animal, and the animal had enough energy in him yet. He might have expired there, but that's not the point. He got to his feet, and he came out of his bed, and he came straight in our direction. And the most ethical thing to do, and the correct thing to do, is put him down, and that's what we just experienced. It took a shot from each side because his adrenaline was flowing. Even then, we have two very powerful rifles, but once that adrenaline is going, I don't know what there is that you can really shoot him with. An animal of that size and that strength to immediately knock them off their feet. I think we know the bow is a very adequate tool. The other day, we saw one go less than 10 paces and drop dead.